but thanks for listening. Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to We Say Things, episode 29, sponsored by absolutely nobody. SUNSfan here with the great syndereN. How has your week been, syndereN? Tell us all about it.
It's been pretty good, you know. First of all, we have something to look forward to that we actually haven't talked about on the podcast. I'm getting a dog in a week.
Whoa! Tell us all about
so
it.
we could talk about that if you want.
Do it. Yeah, give it to me.
We're getting a Nova Scotia duck talling retriever, which is apparently the longest dog breed name in the world, as it turns out.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so my girlfriend has had a dog before growing up. This will be my first pet. So
can you repeat that name? I'm going to Google it real quick.
Nova Scotia duck talling retriever.
Got it. All right, let's take a look at this.
Very adorable.
Oh, sorry. For people watching or listening, don't worry. Or people listening, I should say. I'm not showing this on stream. This is up to you to Google. Mm-hmm. Very cute. So kind of like long-haired and almost golden retriever-ish.
Yes.
I don't know much about dogs.
The easiest way to explain it for people that don't know the breed is that it's like a red-brown golden retriever, and they're a bit smaller. And supposedly what they were originally bred for was, if you think about how you have sheepdog and how they, herd the sheep, this is a hunting dog that, in quotation marks, I guess, herds the ducks. So instead of only retrieving the duck, which plenty of retrievers do, these dogs somehow have the intelligence to understand that circling around them so they don't escape is a strategy as well. So for hunters, you can teach this dog or it instinctively will circle around the prey so that you can shoot it, and then they will also retrieve it. So it's like an added element of intelligence, I guess.
So
we're not going to go hunting, though. We are not hunting with the dog.
But what if you turn it around and you get a duck as a pet as well, in addition to this dog, and they become friends?
Duck as a pet?
Yes.
This is Denmark, SUNSfan. We don't have ducks as pets.
Why not? I feel like of any country that would make sense, it's Denmark.
No, that would be the U.S. because you have literally anything as pets and anything as food.
Wait, what do we have as pets that you don't? What kind of a statement is that? It's ridiculous to say such
I don't know.
thing.
Everything.
Do you guys have snakes?
Obesity as pets.
That's not, I mean, my stomach is kind of my pet, I suppose, but it never leaves my side, so I feel like it's part of me.
Fermented cheese as a pet. It categorizes as a pet in the U.S.
Okay, very interesting.
Okay.
Go on, please.
So, yeah, well, what is there to say? We're getting a little male. It'll be 8 weeks old when we get it in a week. And yeah, that's going to be really, really exciting. And
you're going to snip those testicles?
Not for starters, at least. So that's not the plan.
You're going to eventually?
Maybe. I don't know. We haven't decided that yet.
Really?
We haven't made the decision. Yes.
You're going to let that dog just bang anything that walks, then, is what you're saying?
I think. So again, I don't know how it works in the States. The way you just said it, it sounds like that's a surprise, and that the norm is definitely to do that. I actually don't know how it is in Denmark.
It is definitely the norm, yes, unless you're breeding.
Right. Yeah.
That's not the... Wait, are you saying it's not the norm, or you don't know what the norm is?
I don't know what the norm is in Denmark.
Okay.
But the way you said it, it sounded like it's very unusual in the U.S., which is interesting. I don't know if it's the same here, but...
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so we get more updates from you in a week. That's great to hear, syndereN.
Yeah, maybe if you're lucky, you'll get a picture. I mean, I do have a picture.
Wow.
If you want to see it, I can actually show it on the camera. Should I show you? I'll show you.
Please do. I would love to see this.
Let me just find this.
Sorry, audio people, in advance.
This is great for audio.
Describe it. Describe every detail so that they don't need to open the YouTube video.
Okay, let me see. So I need to see that you can see this.
Oh, it's going to be on your phone. I see. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, look at you. You're all smiley. Very nice. How cute. Oh, that's very cute, actually.
A bit blurry, though.
No, we can see.
I don't know why this isn't sharper than this. Oh, now it's switched off. Great.
We got the idea. Thank you, syndereN.
Help. Okay.
Very cute. Have you named it? Him?
Yeah. Yes. So
is
it's
it Trost?
original. No, that's me. Its original
Thank God.
name is Atlas. They named
Mhm.
all the dogs with the letter A. And we are going to call it løg, which is the Danish word for onion.
I'm sorry. Can you say that again, please?
Løg.
Light.
Løg.
That's you're naming your dog Lie.
No, løg.
Loy. And it means
that was
what?
Pretty good. That was actually pretty good. Onion.
Your name Onion. I just want to make sure I understand. You're naming it
Correct.
Onion.
Yeah.
And you're not trolling me right now.
I am not trolling you right now.
The name of your dog will be Onion.
Correct.
Why? I need to understand before I make fun
this
of
has a bit. It has it has a bit of history. So we were talking about what we should name our dog, and I don't know. We were just coming up with ideas, and I feel like it was my idea originally, just based on its color scheme, and like translating names like that is a bit weird because it's a lot, especially for me with dogs. It's a lot about the sound of the word, right? I would never advise anybody to name their dog Onion, but the Danish word for it sounds good as a dog call. And it also, like, just the sound of the word also sounds cuter, and it's one syllable, and it's very unique. So when you're calling your dog, nobody else has a similar name for the dog. So all of those things, I think, matter.
Everyone's making fun of me because one of my cats' name is Bucket.
Yeah, I feel like I don't know if I would have gone for that either, but
Bucket is a good name.
Go ahead and make fun of me.
I can yell and say, "You fucking bucket!" and it sounds good to say out loud, right? And then the other two are very cute. There's Pookie and Monkey. Those are very cute. Apparently, Pookie means vagina in Tagalog. So that was...
You literally named an animal the name of another animal.
Yes, Monkey. I've always wanted a cat named Monkey. It's just the best name.
I feel like you should not be in a position to judge me at all for my decision.
syndereN, all right, I want people in the YouTube comments, I guess is the best place to put it. Do you prefer the name Monkey for a cat or Onion for a dog? Okay? That's all we need to hear.
This is not a fair comparison because you're...
Tomato. Tomato, come here, please. Tomato.
Or is it fair? I don't know.
How's it not fair? Please tell me.
I was just thinking about how it would sound if I named a pet Bucket, but the Danish word, which is spent.
Spent?
I don't know if spent, like span.
It's very aggressive. I like it.
A little tighter. Spent. Yeah. Start calling your cat Spent. I'm sure they'll love it.
I'm sure they will. Okay, we got to move on with the actual episodes, and I'm looking forward to your onion.
Talk about dogs.
I'm going to talk about your onion every week, by the way. So
I'm sure you will.
All right, we have a couple reviews to go over. I guess I'll take the first couple. First is from JM Freeze. My weekly dose of Dota. Great podcast. Big fan of SUNSfan. Starting playing Han back in the day, and now 2K trash in Dota. Great listen for staying up to date on Dota and random esports news. NA Dota lives on. Update, never got my review called out, so here we are. Sorry. I'm really sorry about that, friend. He's from the United States, of course. Next.
Maybe he gave it 4 stars last time, and you were like, fuck this guy.
I ignore those. Next is...
Absolutely. Very good.
Mihawk LFC from Germany. Myhawk, maybe. Sponsorship deal, 5 stars. Hey, is this the place where I can offer sponsorship? I offer 5 tomatoes each. Honest, though, nice. Great podcast. Loving your guys' dynamic. Really entertaining. Always keep me invested. Also, when is the next guest so I don't have to listen to Suns news at the start? How dare you, by the way? That's going to happen regardless of having a guest or not.
When's our next guest?
So, should we say who they are? We have 2 guests lined up already.
Sure.
So we have Cyborg Matt and Korean Barbecue, aka Jack.
KBBQ.
So we'll have to just schedule with them. I think this episode, well, obviously there's no guest, by the way. Just letting you guys know in advance, there's no guest for this episode. And next episode definitely will not be a guest because of the patch. So it's going to be a couple weeks until then. Take the next one, syndereN, please.
Okay, next one is from Lion Tiger 23 from Russia. I think that's our first review from Russia. Best podcast to listen to while playing Overwatch. Okay, thank you. Let's go to the next one and not read out the text. Okay. I love both SUNSfan and syndereN. They're by far my favorite personalities in Dota 2 world. Oh, although I haven't played Dota for a long time, I love watching and listening to the Dota 2 news. The Dota 2 news. That's right here, guys.
You get the best news here.
But the best thing about the podcast are all the non-Dota talks about alcohol and food. All right, there we go. He knows what it's about. Please keep doing this amazing podcast. Thank you very much, Lion Tiger. And finally, from Pumice Peter from Canada. He is not Canadian, but I think he is in Canada at the time. In Bruges and I. Oh, what a title. Very something. Every Tuesday when I listen to the podcast, I consider whether I should watch In Bruges like SUNSfan demands, and then I forget about it 17 minutes later. I'm sorry. I can relate. I feel it's a very forgettable movie when you haven't watched it yet. So
you guys, it sounds like you guys both have a condition if you're forgetting about something so soon after the event takes place. But, you know, I'm not one to judge. Great movie, by the way, in case you haven't heard.
Oh, all right.
Quick semi-announcement here. We haven't officially announced this yet, but it's because we're going to probably today, I would assume. Slacks, me, Sheaver, and a bunch of other people are going to be doing this thing called, if you guys have heard this of Steam Remote Play. Have you heard of Steam Link, Cinder? We've talked about Steam Link.
We've talked about it. Yeah, we have.
So Steam Remote Play is this thing that's already out right now, actually, but they just haven't advertised it yet. Essentially, it takes games that have had no way to play together in an online perspective, and you're now capable of doing. So, for example, let's say Towerfall Ascension. Like, it's one of my favorite games, by the way.
Really?
You can only
Wait, have we played that together?
So the first time I saw it was at one of the it was either this. No, it was shit. What's that Chinese land that we cast at BTS?
I'm not sure, but yeah, it was a BTS, right?
Yeah. So you guys played the shit out of it. I only watched. I never really played it with you. I don't think I've ever actually played it with you. So I started playing like last year, and it's a lot of fun. It's a good game. But anyway,
I was like, that game is the. I had so much fun, and you didn't play it. Now you're like, it's one of your favorite games, dude. Oh my god.
So. Yeah, so a game like that, you have to have people physically in the same space to play each other, right? So the cool thing about Steam Remote Play is, let's say I own the game, and I open it, I can invite 3 other people to join me. They don't have to have the game at all, and they can play with me. So that's the kind of functionality that they've added to Steam now. So we're going to be doing a stream on Steam TV to showcase that. It's going to be like an all-day thing. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Going to have a lot of different guests. Cinder, you're not one of them. I apologize.
That's cool. Don't want to play with you anyway because you didn't want to play with me. So,
yeah. Well, I did want to play with you.
Why did you choose Slacks?
Yeah, that was
what
not
makes
my
you
choice.
think you want to play that game against Slacks?
It was not my choice, friend. I'm sorry.
I mean, it's going to make you look good by comparison, so that's great. I'm sure you'll crush them.
I'm going to look very smart next to Slacks. So yeah, that's going to be Wednesday. It should be a lot of fun. Next thing, before we get started with it, I have 3 things we're talking about, Cinder. This one, I don't know if this is interesting to people, but I thought it would spark up maybe a little bit of a conversation. So my brother went to, I believe it's this Ancestry.com site. You have to go give your DNA or something like that, and they can tell, where you come from, essentially.
And then they own you, basically.
So that's the interesting about this is, Nikki was looking this up a while back. I wouldn't say this is the reason I haven't done it, but there's like a lot of connections. I'm going to butcher this horribly, but I know you can just Google this. The person that founded Ancestry.com is like married or related to somebody, one of the people that started Google or something like there's crazy connections to where it's not hard to make this assumption that, yeah, they actually are collecting your physical data at that point, right? Your DNA, which is kind of weird. But anyway, my brother did it.
Imagine they collect your DNA
and they clone me in
later
the future.
They sell it to you.
They sell it to me? For what purpose?
Yeah. They sell you the rights to yourself.
Oh,
it sounds like something
like
Google would do.
Thing.
Yeah. First they ban you from life, and then you can buy it back.
Would you ever do something like this, by the way? To see where exactly
sell your life?
The DNA.
I mean, I'm a little bit curious, but I don't think mine will be particularly interesting. Your brother's looks really interesting, actually.
So this is a really stupid question. If I take this test, shouldn't it be identical to his, or will it be slightly different, you think? Obviously, we don't have the exact same DNA, but we have the same parents.
You have the same biological parents.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like it should be the same, right? I don't know what the
I assume it's going to be the same, so I'll just assume this is mine, but this is for him. So 38% is from Iran/Persia, the Persian Empire, if you will. 33% is England, Wales, and Northwestern Europe.
Did that surprise you?
No, this one. because my last name is Scotton, right? So I knew it was in
Right.
this area. I thought maybe more of this one, which I'm going to say, which is Ireland and Scotland, is 14%. I definitely thought that would be higher.
Wait, so where are your parents from?
So my dad was American, and my
Uh-huh.
mom is Iranian. So
Okay.
but we knew that, you know, the Scotton family came from. I mean, the story is, Cinder, if you never heard the name Scotton, Scotten, right? Scott
Mhm.
10. I don't know if this is real, but my dad always told me this this very brief story that it was from back in the day when there was this group of Scottish guys that just kept going from town to town, raping, pillaging, and destroying everything they came in contact with, and they called them the Scott 10. And that is
All right, that sounds like a story. That is a story.
I know. There's no way
right
it's
there.
real. There's no way it's real.
No, but it's a bit surprising when I look at this. Okay, you can do the last percentages first.
Turkey and I don't even know how to say it, the
Caucasus.
Caucasus. What is that? 9% for that one. I don't know what the
You know the word
Caucasus is.
Caucasian?
Yes,
That's where Caucasian comes from. The Caucasus.
but it's Middle East, right?
Yeah, it's like isn't it? Doesn't it have something to do with a mountain chain as well?
You can look it up. So then we have Germanic Europe 4% and Sweden 2%. That's interesting. And obviously they have a bunch of like they don't have percentages for these, but it just says additional communities is Indiana, Ohio, Midwest, US basically, which we already knew obviously. So I don't know.
Right.
It's kind of interesting. Like I had no idea we had any Swedish blood.
Well, I guess can anyone in this ancestry? Wow, that was hard to say. Apparently, can anyone in this test get U.S.? Is that even an option?
I don't think so.
Unless
I
you're
would assume
Native
not.
American, right? If you're Native American,
Yes,
you can get
that's true.
that on this. Because I was like, okay, if one of your immediate parents is from the U.S., why are you not getting America on here? But that
Not
isn't
only that, but
considered.
it's generations are in the US too. So this goes back like
Yeah.
further than that, which is interesting.
Exactly. So maybe if you're Native American, you can get it, but apart from that, you can't, because then the migration was too recent or whatever. For the
Right.
sake of this, that's interesting. Okay, so your dad's side of the family definitely migrated over from England.
Yes.
Is what you can assume here. Okay.
Yep.
Well, that's
I
cool.
own
It's
Europe
pretty
and the
accurate.
Middle East, bro.
Yep.
I can say I'm European now, officially. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Amazing.
All right, and then the last topic of the intro. This is the longest intro we've done so far, but this is very
Yeah.
important. I went to White Castle finally. I told you about this place, right? You've heard of the
Yes.
movie and the rave.
I've heard of
So,
the place.
For the longest time, it's only been in the east of the U.S., forever, basically. Apparently, there's one in Vegas, which I didn't know about. They finally brought one to Arizona. There's none in California, just to give you an idea. And this is the only, I believe, the only family-owned, the original family-owned White Castle west of the Mississippi, I believe. And it's also the biggest one in the entire world. The lines have been so ridiculous. It's been out for over a month. I think we might have discussed this, where they had to shut, it's 24 hours as well. And they had to shut everything down because it was too crowded. Like the lines were 8-9 hours long, something ridiculous.
Dude, okay. Can I
Here
just
we
say
go.
this again? We
Here
talked
it
about
is.
it last episode.
Yeah.
How can you possibly bring yourself to queue up for fast food for more than 20 minutes?
So
It's not fast food anymore. It's not that good. Let's be honest. It's not that good. There's no fast food that's that good that it's
Right.
worth waiting over an hour for. How the fuck do you spend your whole day waiting to eat mediocre at best food?
it's an
actually
experience.
baffles me. It's fucking
think of it
mind-blowing.
as I'm not defending this, but think of it as kind of an experience. It's the first time it's ever opening on this side of the country. Essentially, it's a story, right? Yeah, it's a waste of time. It is a story. You get to experience it firsthand. We went there. So this is the thing. We went there what is today? No, we went there on Sunday night. Okay, 11:30 p.m.
Right.
There were literally 30 people working there. Not even joking. 30 people working there.
Jesus.
The line wasn't that long. It was maybe 10, 15 people, but you could see how they prepped everything for when it is busy, right?
I thought
Basically,
you were
they
gonna
have
say you could see that they had longer queues earlier that day because they were dying.
Oh, well, not quite, but I'm sure they brought people nice and fresh. They own this entire parking lot. It's huge, this parking lot. They have these queue lines set up that go ridiculous distances. You have areas that tell you this is where you need to park if you're going to White Castle. This is where you need to park if you're going to the drive, like they actually have to designate this stuff because it's so crowded apparently during the day. I've never seen it when it's that crowded. But 11:30, like typically you go anywhere in Arizona at 11:30, there's nobody there. Nobody.
Mm-hmm.
This was a lot of people. So we finally ate there. I think I said this when we had our tier review of the fast food places. I had White Castle as a kid once. I don't remember how it was. I was not expecting much. They have like these frozen stuff you can buy in the store. It does not sound that good. I had it, pleasantly surprised. I mean, it wasn't amazing. Let's be real. It was probably like a C or a B or like a B minus on my tier list.
Okay.
It was okay. Like it wasn't mind blowing. It wasn't great. I would go back because it is an interesting experience. Just so much different than all the other fast foods. But you know.
Do you think it would have influenced your rating if you queued up 8 hours to have this B minus experience?
It would have been a D, probably. Yeah.
Yeah, probably.
Correct. When you come visit, we'll stand in line together.
How's that sound? I still can't get over it. Like whether you're exaggerating or not, even if it's 2 hours, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like,
I'm not exaggerating.
So you like you said, it's an event, it's a moment, right? How strong is this brand? Like I know culture in the US with fast food is different. Like fast food places are apparently considered good, but in a different way. But like imagine this. Imagine a good restaurant opened next to it with the same prices, but you know, if you can imagine that, just better food at the same price, there would be like no line. Even if, you know, the brand has got to be so strong that people want to queue up for that.
Well, think of it this way.
That's crazy.
So this, I'm going to try not to get emotional here. This is stupid. But my
dad... If a new McDonald's opened down the street...
No, McDonald's doesn't give a shit. Yeah.
I don't know if anyone would even care.
The reason this was bittersweet for me was because my dad, this was his favorite place ever growing up. Because he lived in Indiana. This is like the thing they lived off of, right? They never had one here. So he was waiting for literal decades, right? So there's a lot of people like that move from the Midwest or East Coast that are used to, that grow up on this stuff. And they just don't have it, this entire side of the country, right?
Right.
So I can understand that, but that can't be that many people, right? So I think a lot of it is maybe the movie, Harold and Kumar Go to White Castle. That was a big deal back in the day. That definitely helped their brand. Right. I will say, like, everybody there was just a bunch of them were just groups of people. You buy these, like, basically these huge boxes. We didn't do that, but huge boxes of these sliders. You just share them. It's an experience. It's fun. I can see it. It's actually really, I was going to say high class, not the food. Like the establishment itself was very high tech. Like, I don't know if this is normal for you. I've never seen a fast food place where when you sit, you have an outlet next to you by each seat.
Oh, that's nice.
You have like the
you
napkins,
can plug in
for
your
example.
Phone, make sure you don't talk to people you're out eating with.
That's right. You don't want to associate with anybody. They make sure you can take pictures, right? Like the napkin dispenser was automated. I've never seen that in my entire life. That was crazy. Just, I don't know. It was cool.
Damn.
I liked it. I have no problem.
Is an automatic napkin dispenser good? I think the reason they do it is so people don't, because when people take napkins, sometimes they'll just take like 10 and they need one, right?
That's me.
So the reason they do that is so that people don't take too many, basically.
Correct.
I'm going to assume that. I'm assuming it's not easier than taking them yourself because you have to wait for it and you maybe only get one and you wanted 3.
It's 2 at a time. So you do get 2. But yeah, it was interesting. Okay, let's move on to actual Dota 2, syndereN. The major is currently going on, so we don't have really much to discuss in that regard yet since it just recently started. There was a report that Beast Coast had H1N1. I was like, what the fuck? So
that was something.
That was a crazy announcement. But luckily, we did get some news shortly after. Beast Coast tweeted, "Thanks for everyone's concern about Chris. We went to the hospital last night to check him out, and doctors told us he does not have H1N1. He's resting in the hotel, etc., etc." So have we ever had, like, I know players have gotten sick, but has anything like super serious in your memory happened to a player at like a major LAN before?
The only thing I can think of was ever got a bad virus like that, or I don't think so.
I believe somebody at I will still continue to say the worst LAN of all time, which is WCA, the original. Somebody got pneumonia. I know S4 got sick as well. I don't think he's the one that got pneumonia. Somebody literally got pneumonia.
Right, S4 got sick. I remember that.
That might be the most serious that I
Considering that he still played and won the LAN, I'm going to go ahead and say it wasn't that serious. Because if you have something like a fresh H1N1, I don't think you can play. I mean, I don't know. I've never had it. I'm not an expert on it, but it's a pretty serious virus. And I think what he had was a regular flu, probably. Which, still, playing with that is not enjoyable, but he trucked through it. That was pretty crazy, actually.
Let me read a Mally quote here. Mally posted something on Reddit as well. I would like to reassure all of you that Chris Luck does not have H1N1. The doctors thought it could be because of the symptoms, which led them to do a blood test to confirm their doubts. However, the test came out negative. So he feels a bit better and blah, blah, blah. So obviously good to hear. That was one of those, like, I don't know how bad. Do you know how bad H1N1 is?
It's bad.
Like, how bad?
I don't know how you rate how bad.
Put it on a scale. Compare it to another disease or virus. Like, is there... at that point, are you talking about, like, mortality rate?
It's a possibility, at least. I don't know how high it is. It's a type of swine flu, if that means anything to you.
Is it? You remember in the U.S. there was a bird flu, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, that people were hyping that up to be really bad. It ended up being not that bad, but H1N1 is the bad one. I could be wrong about this. Maybe they're both horribly bad.
I'm not 100%. I don't know enough about it, but I know that. I mean, the thing about it is when these when they get announced, these new viruses or whatever, a lot of the times it's a bit difficult to gauge how dangerous they are at the time. So in order to try to prevent epidemics, like sometimes maybe you will make it a really big deal, even if it turns out it isn't, because it's safer that way, right? Because you want people to pay a lot of attention and make sure it doesn't spread in case it's very bad. And I think most of the time they probably have the expectation that this can get super bad. So when this stuff happens, you make sure you make a big deal out of it. People see it, people hear it. And then hopefully, herd awareness, if you can call it that, will help combat it, right? From becoming something big. I don't know, as far as like really bad ones go, right? I actually just watched an episode on this on Netflix randomly. You remember when SARS happened, right?
Yep.
How that was considered, holy shit, this is going to be a really big problem. And then it just eventually turned out that the virus wasn't very strong-lived. So it kind of just died out, even though it was airborne and it was really easy to transmit and a lot of people got sick really fast. It kind of killed itself. But you don't know that. So when you obviously have to wait until you know how much longevity the virus has. And if you wait to find that out, it can already be too late and it's spread to thousands and thousands of people across the world. And that's when you have an epidemic, right? So.
And then you have diseases like polio or measles coming back. Or I think polio might have been taken out completely, actually, but measles coming back because of anti-vaxxers and whatnot. Complete scum of the earth.
Honestly, that is part of the threat to the future of the world, is that people
idiocy
are against vaccinating.
It's not just
honestly
that.
blowing my mind.
It's idiocy in general. We talked about the end of the world, remember? And I think one of my theories was we just kill ourselves because we're all idiots.
I mean, it's one thing that you have the power over yourself, right? And you're like, I want to make bad decisions for myself. That's fine. People make bad decisions all the time for themselves. But when you make bad decisions that put your community at risk, I feel like by law you shouldn't be allowed to. I actually think it's crazy.
They're starting to implement laws statewide, like each individual state to put something in, but I don't think it's gone that far. But only time will tell. Not to change the subject, I just remembered something about fast food, syndereN, if I could briefly mention.
Okay. Speaking of deadly
H1N1
diseases.
There's a place called Jollibee. Have you heard of it?
Yeah, I think so.
It's the most famous Filipino fast food place. It's
global.
Yeah,
I've heard about this.
It has burgers. It has randomly spaghetti. It has chicken. I don't understand what they're... when Nikki told me about it, I'm like, that sounds awful. Like, holy shit. So anyway, they're bringing their first one to Arizona, and it opens in December. So you guys can stay tuned to that episode because we will go there. I will not stand in line, though.
Nikki was super excited for it, right?
Oh, yeah. She's obsessed.
Is she obsessed because of nostalgia or because she thinks the food is that good? Or is she just excited because it's...
Are you asking her or me?
I'm sure you've already talked about this, so you can speak on her behalf.
For me, it's 90% nostalgia. For her, it's probably 50-50. She loves the food. I mean...
Okay, I mean that's great.
I've had it before. I haven't had the burgers. That's what I really want to rate. I've had the spaghetti, and it's like, this is awful. Like, I'm not going to go to a fast food place to get spaghetti. You know,
I would if they
that's just
made
me.
good spaghetti. If they made good carbonara, but
Eh,
do fast food places really make pasta like that though? Like that's the
not
thing.
typically. Yeah, it's kind of weird. But anyway,
Yeah.
moving on
Okay.
again. I like how we're all over the place this episode. Reporting update for Dota 2. So they removed a few things. I'm sure you want to go over this. They removed being able to report for intentional feeding and ability abuse, and instead have added 2 different categories. One called disruptive gameplay, which is for reporting players with who ability abuse, intentionally feed, go AFK, or similar. And then the second category is cheating or MMR abuse, which covers reporting players who are manipulating matchmaking via scripting, hacking, or something similar. What do you think about this?
I think this should have happened 5 years ago.
Did you ask for it 5 years ago?
I don't think I've ever asked for changes to the report system directly. So I mean, I'm not blaming.
You're part of the
I'm not
problem,
saying it's somebody. I'm not saying. I guess so. I mean, I could have done it.
This should have been added 5 years ago, but I never thought of it.
Yeah. So first, you need. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating here. 5 years is a long time in Dota. But because when you think back, to be honest, 5 years ago, I don't think it was nearly the scale of problem that it is now. But the concept itself, I think, could have been at any time, right? And I think the report categories for a long time have been limited, and the system itself has been exploitable, which is a problem. We've talked about this before in a different episode, how people are always going to misuse a system. So the goal is to make the system as little misusable as possible. And the previous one was very misusable. You could report for multiple things people didn't do, the way you got reports back, the way they were weighted and whatnot. Was problematic, I think. So for me, this is a really good change. And yeah, it's not something I've been touched by that much, but just anecdotally, and when you hear people talk about it, the report system being a really big problem, it's something that has to be fixed because it has a huge impact on people's average enjoyment of the game. Like, it's not fun being placed in low priority for playing a bad game. Like, like this kind of stuff is just stupid and shouldn't be happening in a game like this. So basically, what I think is really good about this is, first of all, you can only report for one category. And I think the reason they didn't do that in the past was with the previous categories they had, you could easily have done 2 or 3 offenses at once. There were people that were just communication abusing, feeding couriers, and then also, what was the third category? Ability abuse, right? So you could imagine a tiny that would toss you into the enemy team on purpose, then run down mid, and then feed couriers, and then call you shit in chat, right? So they would fit into all 3 categories. There were people like that. And I think the reason they held on to the possibility of reporting multiple categories is that they couldn't justify, well, if we remove this, people are going to be frustrated that they can only report people for one thing, because the really strong offenders should be able to be reported for multiple things so they can be punished harder. Which, in essence, is a good idea, but the problem is when people get upset, man, my Tinker's playing really bad. I'm going to report him for communication abuse, intentional abuse, and ability abuse because I don't like him, And then suddenly, how do you balance out that system so the reports are weighted correctly? Now, you get one category that kind of encompasses all ruining and one that encompasses cheating, which is also a really interesting stance because so far in Dota 2's history, you've not been able to report people for cheating or for scripting. There hasn't been a way of doing it, which I think for a lot of players is super frustrating. Now, if a player gets multiple cheating or MMR abuse reports, I'm guessing that either they have a system that's really good at detecting if that is actually the case when they get enough reports, or the cheating or MMR abuse things will be gone through manually if there are enough reports on the same player, because there will be way less of these than disruptive gameplay. There should be.
How many people do you think script?
I don't know.
Do you think there are a lot?
I think I saw a statistic from, was it Gosu AI or whatever, that did a parsing of a lot of matches, and I think the average across all brackets was like 3 to 5%.
Really?
So every 25th player, I would guess.
Holy shit. That's insane.
So that means the chance of having a cheater in your game, I don't know how you do the math on that, but you
I mean,
know,
that's way higher than I thought it would be.
it was also higher than I thought, which, you know, again, I don't know if you can 100% trust those statistics, but I wouldn't be surprised if at least 1% of players did something.
I mean, that's the thing though. Like a lot of times it's not noticeable in game. Like you'll never notice it
Yes,
unless it's something that just
exactly.
happens. That like, holy shit, he had to, like you probably missed like 9 or 10 of these a game that would have happened normally, right? So
Mhm.
that's part of the reason that the Overwatch system from CSGO would, in theory, be good for something like this, because that I
Yep.
feel like would probably require an actual set of eyes to just verify, because that's quite an infraction, right? So you think they're doing this privately instead of farming it out to the public?
I don't know. Well, for now, since they haven't announced anything, I'm guessing so, yeah. They might have like a little private group of people that do it. Or, again, maybe they have... I think, let's say, for example, let's say somebody's angry at me in a game and they're going to report me for cheating. I don't think it's an automated system. I think this automated system needs overwhelming evidence. So I'm really hoping that people don't start using the cheating or abuse thing as a hate category. Whereas, like, I played against this guy, he picked techies, fucking idiot. I'm going to
Do you
report
think
him
they
for
should be
cheating and MMR
putting a
abuse.
third category that's just a placebo that doesn't actually do anything?
We talked about that. I don't know. I don't know if it will work, but
Fuck him.
it's yeah, put a category called "fuck him." Yeah, I think for something like this, because of how Valve treats cheating with these VAC bans that last anything up toward, like, I don't know, 20 years or whatever it is, it has to be manual review. Or if it is some way automated, it needs to be overwhelmingly convinced. I think it's way more dangerous to start handing out player bans than it is to hand out communication bans or matchmaking bans for, let's say, a week that you can't queue MMR for ranked matchmaking. But this is... cheating is much more serious on that scale because the punishment is way more severe.
Yep, I agree.
So you gotta do it right. But the idea here is great.
Are you surprised there was no update to the rank system, the queuing? Or is that just going to be a bigger update with the Outlanders patch?
I think they kind of... when was the last time they updated it? Was that last week?
Yeah.
They might need a little bit more time with the new things they did to get more data, or or they're in a phase with it right now where they feel like, okay, this is kind of close to what we want, so we'll keep it running a bit longer and see what people think. Anecdotally, for me, it's not good right now compared to the long queues that we talked about last time. That was the best that we had, both of us. But again, we're probably more tolerant with how long we want to queue than other people are.
Yes, for sure. And I think a lot of the issues may or may not get fixed with the new patch just based on how many people are going to be playing anyway.
I think so too.
So let's move on to, as you guys know, last week we did an AMA on Reddit. Thank you to everybody that supplied questions and comments, and a lot of great feedback. Ridiculous amount of comments. I tried to answer all that we both tried to answer all that we could. So let's go through a few of them that we found interesting. So from Nico Mashiron. Good day, SUNSfan and syndereN, fan from Philippines here. I don't know if this question was asked already. For SUNSfan, if you were to describe the differences in similarity of your friendship between, I think similarities or difference, between syndereN and Slacks, what would they be? And then for syndereN, describe the difference or similarities of friendship between SUNSfan and Bulldog. What would they be? I actually thought about this for a while. I can't come up with a good answer because there are... I think I said 3 when I originally said this, but I was sadly forgetting something. There's 4 people in the esports scene that I fully trust, and I don't really question whether they have their best interests only at heart.
Good intentions, yeah.
Yes, the good intention. It's something that... What's the best way to put this? I kind of learned this the hard way, that you can sometimes easily trust people and maybe a bit naive, especially for myself coming into the scene. Even though I was like 25, I wasn't even that young. But I just never really worked with people this directly and for this in an industry like this before. So finding somebody to trust is really important. So they're both on that list, but they're both just very different people. Like syndereN's much more serious. He's much more logical.
very
Slacks
serious.
is literally insane and the most unorganized person I've ever worked with. So Slacks is definitely more frustrating to work with on the organizational side because it's the fact that he doesn't use a calendar still, and he's busier than
That's
probably
pretty
both of
impressive.
us combined is ridiculous that he doesn't. I don't know how he remembers anything, but at the same time, he's a literal genius. And then for syndereN, most eloquent person. I said this. Maybe I've said this in the podcast as well, but back in the day when somebody was asking me, what is the reason you came to Dota 2 to cast? Like, why did you start casting all of a sudden? I'm like, it's because I found a co-caster that I actually wanted to cast with, and that's syndereN. And that still kind of remains the case.
Oh,
He's just
that's why
has
we
that.
cast together all the time.
That's why we're doing a podcast, because I don't want to cast anymore. syndereN, how about you, friend?
Well, first of all, I have an extra question for that one. Do you consider me serious or serious compared to Slacks?
Compared to Slacks, yes.
Okay, yeah. I was curious about that. I don't consider myself a very serious
Purge
person.
is
if you ask me,
serious. Serious.
Purge is a serious person. Yes, I think that's fair. I think it's fair to say. All right. So what was my question exactly? What's the difference between my friendship between SUNSfan and Admiral Bulldog? Okay, so I know you way better. First of all, we've met together in person more. We've spent more time together. We've worked together, which is something I've done a little bit with Bulldog, but only like one event where we did some paneling together, so not that much. I think the stuff with Bulldog is also way more Twitch centric. It's way more about the Twitch culture and everything around that. So again, it's less personal on that level, but we're still great when we're together in real life. And I did coach Alliance for one event, and I also had fun working with Bulldog there. So, how do I explain the differences overall, though? I've had way more conversations with you, so we know each other so much better. And we
were like when you joined Dota Cinema, we were working directly with each other every day, especially with Captain's Draft, like daily for months, right?
Captain's Draft took, that was definitely something we spent a lot of time on. So yeah, what are you guys like in person to compare it to what you said with me and Slacks? I would say Bulldog is more clowny. The thing on stream is definitely, it's a persona, but he actually is more similar to that in real life than I think a lot of other people with personas are online. Like, for example, Sing Sing is totally different. Sing Sing's persona is very like high energy, all over the place, like kind of crazy sometimes. And in real life, he's like super down to earth and very easy to talk to and have a serious conversation with. Bulldog, you can also have a serious conversation with, but you probably need to preface the sentence with, Bulldog, this is a serious question. Please take it seriously. So don't fuck around. Nah, he's a bit on the clowny side, which is great. Having a clowny person around is always super fun.
That's a good question, though. What
more,
am I? Oh, okay, you do me and then don't do me.
Yeah.
Okay, do me if you want. I'll do you next.
Okay, you're a bit more. How to say? You're a bit more. You're calmer and a bit more. I think. I don't know if you're more pessimistic than he is, because I think Bulldog probably also is a bit skeptical about stuff to an extent. I guess that especially grows on you when you interact that much with Twitch chat and you're that big on Twitch. You naturally become skeptical about things, I suppose.
Jaded, yes.
Yeah, that's a great word for it. I think you're probably more jaded than he is overall.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. That's
so,
probably it.
How am I online versus in person? Like, what are the differences? Because for you, you are exactly the same. Zero difference, in my opinion.
Yeah, for me, it's like when I think about it, it's very similar with you too. Like, honestly, I haven't even really thought about it. So that says something, right?
If anything, I probably have less energy. And not that I have that much energy to begin with. I'm probably less energy. In real life, I have less energy. Everything else, it's basically the same, I think.
I think it's kind of the same, yeah.
Okay. Next one. So this was asked a lot, despite being in the description of the AMA itself. Is there going to be the A to Z Duel Lane Challenge with new heroes? And we did answer that. It is going to happen again. The question is whether it's going to be exactly the same as the other one, because the heroes are a lot different now, or if we're going to add the AGS thing into it, which we just haven't decided. So that's going to happen sometime after the Outlanders patch. So stay tuned.
Yep.
Next, what heroes do you think need to be reworked in Outlanders, and what do you think these heroes need? No techies, you don't get a cop-out. Okay, fine.
So these questions are always a little bit difficult to answer, because what does reworked mean? Like, when is it considered a rework? Is it
New
a
skill.
rework when you get new spells?
Yes.
Because then, honestly, I kind of, for the most part, I like the state heroes are. It's just values for me that need to be tweaked. The hero that I think is closest to what I would like a rework on is probably Chen. The hero is super good right now, which is one thing. But I also don't think his current design is as fun and as how to say, you're really impactful on the hero, but it's more because of the hero's design than you, if that makes sense. Like a really good Chen player compared to a decent Chen player, I feel like it's harder to showcase your incredible skill than it was before and really stand out as a great Chen player. Because Chen, to a larger extent now, I don't know, it's going to sound stupid, but plays itself. There's less you need to do and less you need to think about and less smart stuff and really cool micro and whatever. It's the hero isn't so much about that anymore. So that would be cool to have a rework. My second choice would probably be Alchemist, where it would be nice to not have the hero revolve entirely around math, where is this a patch where you can farm enough and make Alch broken, or is it a patch where Alch doesn't really work at all? The hero generally doesn't have like a middle ground for the most part. It's either super sick like it was this TI or completely ignore that it was the other TI or whatever. Like it's.
Do you think that there should not be a hero like that in the game though? Do you think all heroes should be equally played? Essentially, is that the goal?
No, I don't think. I think it's great to have unique and really. I have no problem with heroes that are rarely good, but I would like them to be rarely good for a different reason.
That's
like
fair.
Conceptually, I don't disagree with Alchemist as a design, and I don't think it's bad design. I just, I have my favorites and least favorites in the game, and I think heroes like that are just way faster at getting gold and that work this way, I don't find it as appealing personally. I don't think it's a bad design, and I'm not going to be like, oh my god, they didn't rework Alchemist. This hero is so stupid, because I totally get it. I get the design and I get why people think it's fun, but it's not so much for me, to be honest.
Yeah, understood.
But yeah.
So my answer, I think we're going to talk about at the end of the episode because we do have a little segment there. I forgot to mention the names, by the way. The person that asked about A to Z Duel Link Challenge was KP Team. This last question was by Reddit Sucks and Stuff. This next question is from Surya Sath. He asked, why is the game coordinator not connecting? I don't know what it is, but I laughed pretty hard when I read this, and I told myself, I replied as well, that we will talk about that. So this is us talking about that. It's so random.
I don't know what to say here. That's a pretty random question.
It is. And then the last one is from SAA 2099. Can you guys tell us about how you took up gaming casually and what made you go full time, and how did that turn out with family and life events and all? Basically, an all in-depth overview of how you picked up gaming and Dota. So we've probably gone a bit into this, but not. I don't think specifically, right? I think this is kind of a targeted question. So
I think we both talked about our history with playing games, because I remember talking about playing like Civilization 2 and Diablo 1 and all this stuff. So we have covered this in a previous episode. I'm sure. I think somebody asked it as a question and we decided to do it as one of the post segments where or maybe it was in the start, I don't know, but just our history with gaming individually.
Okay, so I'll be more specific because I don't think I talked about all of this. I gave a general overview before, but for me specifically, getting into Dota 1 specifically was because I was playing Counter-Strike and a lot of people played Dota as a side game, and I just had a friend that played it. He asked if I wanted to join him. I said, sure, I'll try it out because I played a lot of Warcraft 3, and that's how Dota 1 started. And then in terms of getting into esports, because I wasn't really into pros playing Dota at all and didn't try to watch it, didn't try to get into it at all, didn't care. When I started playing Han, that's when esports started to become a thing for me. Started watching broadcasts of Hancast, which was my boy Breaky CPK. And I was like, you know what? That sounds like a lot of fun. I'm going to try casting. And that's kind of how it started. So nothing crazy, just like little baby steps. And, got lucky with the YouTube channel. Neil needed somebody to speak English. His English was fucking awful at the time. So I cashed in just by knowing a language. Yeah, that's basically it for me.
Yep. Okay. My very quick version, we got a computer when I was like 6 and I played all sorts of different games. I got into Dota via Warcraft because I was playing that with friends. And And then I got into esports because I started playing a lot of Dota, and I loved getting better, and I loved playing with better people. So I got into in-house leagues, and then played
What
some
was
pro Dota
your
matches in Dota 1, and then
what
I
was the
started getting
original
into Dota 2.
in-house league? What was it called for you?
There were a couple. I played Dota Pickup, which had a lot of players, and then the more exclusive ones were Dota Invite, and then IHCS.
Oh,
I
that's
played a
not
bit
it.
of IHCS too, and then IDEC was there as well. The International Dota Elite Community, I think it was, ran for a little bit. And then Valve announced Dota 2, and we were one of the invited teams for TI, and we were super excited, obviously, about that. And that's when competitive Dota really, like, we had events in Dota 1, obviously, and the competitions were really good, especially the Chinese teams in the history of Dota were super good in Dota 1. But it was never at the scale even close to what TI1 was in terms of like prize pool and audience, and maybe live audience it was, but not online audience. Dota 2 just exploded things very quickly. So yeah, that's the short answers of that.
All right, so moving on to other news of the week, we have a new CSGO update called the Operation Shattered Web. Have you looked into this at all?
I haven't actually. I know that there was a big patch that came out, but I didn't read the specifics.
So there was some balance stuff. I don't think there's that much. It's mostly actually cosmetic, from what I was reading. Like 90% of the page is cosmetic stuff. But the cool thing is, so they came out with 22. I counted myself manually, 22 new models in the game. And I'll just read a little snippet here. So for the first time in CSGO, unlock all new terrorist and counter-terrorist sided characters equipable on any map. All new CT operators and T agents are available as mission progress rewards. Complete missions and earn stars to unlock them and equip them for deployment. Or equip the default local agent or operator to use the pre-existing map-based characters. And the thing that's kind of blown up a bit is the fact that one of the characters is a female, which I believe, if I'm not mistaken, is the first female model in Counter-Strike's history, which now that I think about it is insane. How it's been so many years. Right?
Was one of the hostages in Office?
All right, maybe
female.
All right, well, let's say a playable character that's not getting killed.
I don't even know. I actually think the hostages were male too.
Yeah, it's possible. I can't remember. I don't ever play those garbage ass CS maps, man. Only DE for me. Destruction all the way.
Dude, you definitely played FY Pool Day. Everybody played FY Pool Day.
No, FY Ice World. I played quite a bit.
Yeah, that's also, those ones. Yeah.
I mean, the original, I talked about this before when I first started playing Counter-Strike, beta 1 through 3, the only map they had was CS Siege. That was the original map. And the game didn't blow up until Dust 1 came out in beta 4. That's when hostage, it's like, wow, why did they ever have hostage rescue? It was so lame.
And that's when you knew you would go pro in this game.
Yep, and I was pro for about a year. And I destroyed syndereN. You know, I went to a LAN once where these very famous people like K-Sharp were at and Bullseye, and I said hello, or they said hello to me because I knew who I was, and I was too shy to say anything. I just like raised my hand.
They come over, hello, and you just look at them.
No, like, here, okay, if you want to know the real story, okay, I was at this LAN. It was the first LAN I was ever at. I was like 12 years old or something. I was very antisocial, had very awkward human being. This guy that knew me, one of the famous guys, was in the back of the room. He's like, okay, my name was not SUNSfan back then, but I don't remember what it was anymore. So they said, SUNSfan, stand up. So I was like, I raised my hand like this very awkwardly, and then I sat down. And then he saw me later in the bathroom, said hi, and I said literally nothing to him. I just ignored it. At the urinal, he's like, hey. I'm like, I was too shy.
See, so when you tell your story, when you're like, I had these opportunities. I should not have stuck with playing with my friends in this ideal world where my friend team could be the best in the world. I should have taken these chances. When you say that, you don't realize that you actually burnt all your bridges because everybody who asked you to play in a good team, you just ignored them. You're like, man, I should have gone for it when that guy said, hey, you want to play in my team? And you just didn't respond.
That was the first one. I will blame myself. That's fine. I mean, I can blame myself for all of it. That was more, I physically could not talk to people. I just had a problem. And I got better over time. So, but anyway, back to the update of CSGO, not my amazing and illustrious Counter-Strike Pro career.
Right. Yes.
Female character, like we talked about. This is kind of like a battle pass format. So you pay you can collect in-game currency, which they're calling operation stars, in order to unlock these guys, or you can pay money to unlock them. who knows how much you actually need to pay. But what do you think? That's pretty interesting.
Well, first, let's do first things first. You said it's a bit controversial that there is a female character. Or what was your word choice?
No, I said it blew up. I think people are making a big deal, which I can understand.
I mean, I guess that kind of means it's controversial, right? If they're making a big deal out of it. Why is that a big deal? I'm just trying to understand. Like, does this do anything for the game? Like, does it matter?
I think it's more of a big deal just because they have never done it before. It's not like I wouldn't. Controversial implies that some people don't like it. I don't think that's the case at all.
Oh, okay. Maybe I misunderstood it then. It sounded like if something blows up when I hear it like that, it blew up. It just sounds like this is something that people are discussing whether this is good or not for the game or whatever.
Okay, in a positive way, I guess.
Okay, that's great then. Because I personally don't have a problem with this. I don't have a problem with the custom models. I don't have a problem with the stuff they've implemented. The most important thing that you really need to be careful with in a game like Counter-Strike is it needs to be very clear intuitively when you look at the designs whether they're counter-terrorist or terrorist, right? Because the models for Counter-Strike have been the same for so long that what can you compare this to? You know how in Dota 2 we used to tread really carefully with cosmetics in the start? Like, it was very restricted what you could do, and then over time it got more and more creative, and now you can fucking put techies on an elephant. In the beginning, in this transition phase, I think it's really crucial in the start that it's just very obvious, because people will need to get used to there being new models, and it will be incredibly frustrating if you end up team killing because you're like, oh, that guy looked like a terrorist. I mean, sure, you have your radar, but you don't, especially at lower levels of play, you're not going to constantly be looking at that radar to see where everybody is. So from what I can see from these models, it seems pretty clear, because what they have primarily maintained, I want to say, across it is the clothing style from the examples that are available right now that you can see. I think the clothing is what sets the models apart way more than like facial features or
that's for sure,
posture or whatever. So as long as the clothing is very distinct, I think it's completely fine to have this.
Yeah, it's a fine line, and I mean, based on the fact that they haven't done this yet, it means that they're taking it very seriously, right?
Yeah.
And I think people will pay a lot of money for stuff like this. You're basically
guessing.
Yeah.
Knowing how they do stuff in CSGO, one of these skins or some of these skins are going to be super rares. So it's going to be something. I don't think it's just you can buy any of them or you can earn any of them. Like, some of them will be rarer and really rare.
I mean,
and they will
the
be
two that
valuable.
They're advertising when you go on their website for the or for this new update is the woman and then this old guy with a it's not a mohawk, but I can pretty much guarantee these are the two rarest, if there are rares. I'd be shocked if that's not the case.
And if you think about it, what people like when they get like cosmetics in the game, right? CSGO already has a really valuable marketplace with weapons that are worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars, the really rare ones. People like that because it's cool to show off and it's unique and it's something special. If you have a special skin, so you look different in the server entirely, also to the enemy team, that is valuable. Like, I feel like if there's an ultra rare skin, it will be the most valuable item in the game's history.
Yeah, possibly.
Like these kind of things at least could, if on top of being rare, they can have all of these like extra things that can happen in CSGO with like items having a different quality or having tournament connection or whatever that determines their value. This can be.
I mean, they came out with a lot
somebody
of
in chat just said the rare ones are like $20.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, then,
honestly, like, I'm just surprised if that's the case, because judging from CSGO's marketplace and how they've done items so far, I thought this would be something that they would do, like just continue the tiering of items that they've already had into this, and then most of the skins are easy to get or not very expensive, and then some are like medium price and some are like really rare, but maybe not. I don't know where that source is from, but Anywho,
yeah. So they came out with a bunch of other cosmetics as well, which we don't need to go over. A bunch of new maps in addition. The new maps, I'm still waiting for them to bring, they brought it back briefly, but they never made it a competitive map, which is DE Season. That was the most, out of all the I played more Counter-Strike than almost anybody in the entire world, syndereN. The most balanced map ever created was Season. I don't know. I didn't play much of the Go version. I know it looked a lot different but the source version was the most balanced map of all time, easily. And I wish they'd bring it back.
I thought CPL Mill, at least at one point from CS
Mill
1.6, was considered.
No, Mill
fairest
was
maps.
very imbalanced because it was very CT sided.
Okay.
There was a better map that was it CPL that came out as well. It was called Tuscan. It was a
Tuscan,
rendition.
I remember as a word.
It was a rendition of Mill that took out the CT sidedness by expanding that area,
Right.
which that map was brilliant. That was a really good map. Like there's certain maps like you have like literally a decade of statistics showing how good these maps are. Like Contra is another one that they could expand on. Like there's a bunch of old maps. Like bring them back. Come on.
Was Tuscan not played competitively in CSGO ever? Does the map not even exist in CSGO? Right?
I've never seen it in CSGO, but I haven't played in like 2 years, so
okay,
I can't say for sure.
Fair enough.
Okay, moving on. So Valve made an announcement, and I think the only reason they made this announcement today is because it was getting rumored. I think some stuff had leaked, but they tweeted out their first tweet ever on this account, which is at Valve Software, already verified, by the way. It says, "We're excited to unveil Half-Life Alyx, our flagship VR game, this Thursday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. Can't wait to share it with all of you."
Okay. Can we just say quickly how much of the stuff that we've talked about just came together with this tweet, actually?
Sure.
We said that Half-Life 3, which they're not naming it because then they just can't do that, but it's the next Half-Life game, would come out. It would come out on VR, and that Valve needed something big because of the competition that's been going on lately. So all of these things are culminating with this one tweet, basically, right now. Not to make ourselves be like, wow, we're geniuses, we're so good,
geniuses.
Because plenty of people have thought about this.
No, it's just us.
Kind of, basically, we're very smart.
Breaking news, Half-Life Alyx.
It kind of confirms the stuff that we were talking about, I think, which is, always great. So we're not totally stupid. But anyway, thoughts? I don't know. There's no gameplay yet. I guess we can both say we're not really surprised. I think a lot of people were very surprised. A lot of people thought this would never happen or were not expecting it. But I think it makes a lot of sense that since they've invested so much time into this technology, Half-Life is probably their biggest brand, right? I would say.
Yes.
Historically, at least. There's a lot of history there, so there's a lot of opportunity. And since they've put so much effort into VR, they should take their flagship title there and do something with it on VR. So, yeah. Cool stuff. I think some of the criticism that I think is very valid right now, and that I want to talk about the next step. Supposedly, about 1% of people that have Steam have VR. So the amount of people you reach with this title that you've put so much effort and time into is very minimal. There will be a player base for this game that is not so big unless everybody that has Steam VR wants it, which, is possible.
I mean, if you think of it this way, we talked about this before with VR and the Index specifically, or any VR for that matter. It needs a killer app, right? I think Beat Saber is as close to a killer app as you can get right now. I think it's an amazing game. Half-Life is a completely different genre. It connects to completely different people. It's the biggest IP that Valve has by far. It's something that people have been waiting for a very long time. I don't know if it depends on how good the game is. If it's as good as everyone is hoping, then it will make a huge difference in getting to the next step for VR, because it's going to be literally the only Half-Life game in the last 15 years or whatever it is that is out, and you can only play it on VR. That's the big thing. It's highly doubt it's going to be on PC. I could be wrong. Like, they haven't announced anything, but what would be the point then if you could play it without a VR system?
I feel like there's two ways of looking at this going forward. Either this is a smash hit and the game is amazing and people want to get VR and want to buy Valve's games on VR and they invest even more into VR, or this somewhat flops, not necessarily because the game is bad, but it's just there's not as many players or as big of a base, or the technology isn't ready yet. I think in 10 to 15 years, VR will explode in how many people access it, how affordable it is and whatnot. But as always is the case with new technology, it just takes time before the average household will have this kind of thing. And VR has some
Unless it's
inherent
3D,
limitations.
and then it's just a gimmick.
Yeah. It's just the technology has some limitations that haven't really existed with entertainment systems before. It needs space. Like, that's another thing. You need the space for it. You need super good hardware, which has been the case for games in the past, right?
You don't need space for something like this because you're not gonna. It's not like you're walking around. Like when you're playing FPS games, you don't walk around yourself usually. You have the option, and I think it's going to be pretty like the standard way to move is with part of the controller is just using the joystick. So you can sit and you can aim like this in your seat. So you need a little bit more room, I guess, than you would normally.
Okay, so that's a lot less than I thought, though. That's okay. That definitely helps. So then the main argument is just about how strong of a rig you need for this, which obviously hits hard in a lot of countries.
It's going to be on the Source engine, I would assume, though. So that's pretty low maintenance. I mean,
as far as I understood, the kind of computer that you need to run this stuff is not cheap, right? I mean, we're obviously in a minority here that have very good setups, but the average player, especially in many countries, will not be able to afford this. Like, just flat out won't afford it.
Well, the index itself is ridiculously priced, right?
Exactly. Like, if you have this kind of game that is, let's say this game is amazing, it's such a shame that so many people don't get to enjoy it because the time just isn't there yet. Maybe they will enjoy it in 10 or 15 years, like I said, but for now they just can't afford it. And so what I was going to say was, if this game is good, I feel like one of two things will happen. Valve have invested so much time and so many resources and so much money into this technology. Either with this flagship game, they realize, okay, this was all worth it, we're going to keep pushing for it. Or they get a bit of a pushback and they're like, okay, this will take longer time. We will now redistribute more resources toward other technology for a while. Because this is kind of the thing that I think a lot of people at Valve have been working on for like a decade by now. They've worked on this VR shit for very, very long. And this will be their, like you said, the title that I don't want to say makes or breaks it, because this can be good or great or bad and doesn't mean anything about the technology in 10 years, but it probably means something about how they distribute resources, because obviously they care about profit, right? And I think this will be Valve's first big test of how much money can this technology make us right now. Right.
So the question is, when will they announce their other games? Because it was
3 games, right?
They said 3 flagship games. Not in this tweet. This was a long time ago. So the question are, what are the other 2? Are they completely different IPs? Is it maybe something Dota related? Are they all Half-Life perhaps? Who knows? Either way, that's going to be more news to come on that. There was a rumor that this will be released March of next year.
Okay.
So not that far away.
That's very soon.
For a Valve announcement, yeah.
Not necessarily. It's also like, we obviously don't know how they've done with beta testing and stuff, but on this kind of technology, this kind of game, I'm assuming the world, like if you build a Half-Life game and you put it on VR, the world is probably relatively big. So there's plenty of space for tons of bugs and wrong interactions and whatnot. That's a pretty short time to beta test this kind of game. So there must have been a beta testing community, or they've just tested it very seriously in-house. But it's always like with this type of gameplay or whatever, you can't only in-house test, because there will be things you just didn't think about as developers, how people would interact with the technology, how they would interact with this area, what kind of things they're trying to abuse in the game. Like, it's also kind of part of the flair, I guess, with Half-Life, how bugged some of the things are. I mean, it's kind of part of this, especially for speedrunning history. The game was very broken, right? But for the average player, you want things to work.
What you're saying is that we are both available to beta test Valve if you need us. One of us actually already has an index that I purchased myself for $1,000 fucking dollars.
Right.
I'm available. Christ, that was expensive. Yeah. Okay. Moving on, and the last thing until we get to our last segment. I think I mentioned this before, Boneworks, which is a game.
Oh, actually, sorry. I feel like I didn't really finish off.
I felt like you were going to interrupt me. I should have followed my bones.
Through.
Please.
Yeah, I should have followed through. So, I think if actually, let me ask you instead, what do you think is going to happen with this? Do you think this will, how to say, do you think it will be a success and Valve will keep funneling a lot of resources and time into VR, or do you think the time is not ready yet for this and Valve should focus more on PC games? Because that's what a lot of people are asking, right? They're like, Valve, you're spending so much time on VR. Please just make some good video games that we've had for the
Right.
last, many years. Because they haven't really made anything for the PC in how long? Was Dota 2 the last
Artifact.
big game they put out? Artifact didn't work, right? That
Underlords.
failed, basically. Underlords is also mobile. It's not, how to say, I don't want to say it's not really a PC game, because it is, but there's nothing inherently about the game that requires PC tech, right? It's playable on mobile. So
yes,
I'm
Dota
asking
2.
for like a title that really uses the technology, because that's what Valve have always been about, right? Like their games have been pretty challenging for hardware and stuff historically and really pushed the limits. So they haven't really made the next generation computer game since Half-Life 2?
Ooh.
I mean, Dota 2 they made, but it
what
wasn't
about
their
CSGO?
own, right? Yeah, that's also Half-Life. Right?
True.
So yeah, it's a bit of a stretch, perhaps calling that Half-Life, right? But
it's technically true.
They haven't made like a new genre game kind of thing.
Portal?
Except, yeah, Portal. Portal was probably the most recent one, I guess. That's fair to say. Portal 2, maybe. People have been, hoping for something like Portal again. And when did Portal 2 come out? Is that 10 years ago?
I mean, imagine Portal 3 on VR. That has to be one of their games, right? There's no way. That sounds like the perfect VR game.
They've got to do it. Absolutely. Okay, release date of Portal 2 was April 18, 2011. So if we both think that was the last, like, really revolutionary thing. It was a puzzle game. We've had puzzle games before, but Portal was iconic.
Did you say April of 2011?
Yeah.
So then a few months later is when Dota 2,
yes.
Dota 2 came out.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in terms of like this really creative, new thinking game world design they did, this was, is it fair to say that this was the last one they put out?
Yes.
Or am I missing something? So that's 8.5 years ago, right? So obviously it makes sense for people to be like, man, Valve, when's your next cool new game coming out? Because they've had some great games, right? Do you think, okay, another thing, do you think side by side with this that they are working on a PC title? Or do you think this is just where they've really focused? And what's your opinion? Because you have the thing, right? You have the index.
Yeah.
Do you think a game like Half-Life will be awesome in this? And do you think this will be a breakthrough? Or should they still focus more on PC for now? And the technology.
The FPS games that I played so far have been pretty underwhelming. But based on things that I've been seeing, and which we'll talk about just very briefly, is Boneworks, which is coming out December 10th now.
Right.
Which looks a lot like Half-Life. The stuff that you can do in there looks really cool. I don't know how it would actually feel playing it. Maybe FPS just feels better for me with a mouse and keyboard versus a virtual reality headset. I have no idea. So I don't think it's very wise to put all your eggs in one basket, regardless of what that basket may look like, which VR is a very risky one, if you want to call it that. I have a hard time believing that they will not come out with a PC version at some point, but I don't think it's going to be for a while, because it would defeat the entire purpose of putting all this investment into VR related stuff if it's not exclusive, at least for a certain time period.
Right.
Like, just from a business standpoint, I can't understand what the point would be.
So
maybe a year down the road.
Are you excited for this? I'm having a hard time reading, like, if you think this is going to be fucking awesome, because there's been things in the past that you were really excited about, and I don't know if...
No, not really. Not going to lie.
Actually not. Okay, so what did you get the console for?
I don't know.
Literally Half-Life 3 on your new index is not getting you excited, what will?
Well, this is the thing. syndereN. When I looked at it, I'm like, wow, first-person shooters, they look like they'd be so much fucking fun to play in this headset. So far, they're not at all for me, for some reason. Beat Saber, like I said, that's the only reason that I put on that headset right now. That game is incredible. It's really fucking good. I won't say if it's worth $1,000 headset good, but it's really fucking good. Of course, you can use that game for any VR headset. It doesn't have to be indexed.
Right.
So I'm cautiously not optimistic. I'm not pessimistic. I'm kind of neutral on this. I'll see it when it comes out, or I guess this week we'll get more information and we can make some more judgments about it. I'm not particularly excited. I don't think it's going to be horrible. It might be okay. I don't know. They've been
Right.
working on it a long ass time, so maybe it is amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, let's be real. Like the games that Valve have come
think
out with recently have been kind of underwhelming. I mean, Artifact for me was amazing, but the general public shat on it, mostly because of the monetization, which we
Yeah.
won't get into again. Underlords, pretty underwhelming as well. I mean, it's not a game you would ever. It never would be your main game to play for most people. You know, so I'm a little, I don't know, meh about it, I suppose.
Okay.
What about
I
you?
think
Do you feel the
final
same?
question. Final question, then I'll let you move on.
Okay.
Could a PC game from Valve get you more excited than this?
Yes, 100%.
Okay, because then that tells something about your view on the technology. So you just don't think VR is quite there yet.
No, definitely not.
Where? Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
I mean, it's a cool experience.
I'm just genuinely asking. Like, I'm not, because I don't have a VR setup myself. I've tried a little bit of Valve's VR a few years back, and I was like, this technology is super promising and could be crazy. But I also had this feeling that we would need maybe even a decade to really get there with full-scale games. So I'm just a bit worried about this kind of a release
look
of
at
this
it this
kind
way.
of a title.
It's not that I don't like when I put on the VR headset, I'm impressed every single time. Legitimately.
Yeah.
I think this is really cool. But I'm on my computer 95% of the day, and that's for a reason. It's just so much more intuitive. It's easier to use. I don't have this fucking giant thing on my head that's weighing me down. I can relax. There's just so many things about it that are just more convenient, you know. The headset, it's interesting, it's cool, it's nice to try every once in a while, but it's never going to be something I'm just doing all day, you know. Just not feasible. So, meh.
Okay. Cool.
All right,
that's enough about that. Let's move on.
All right, so the last segment we'll get into, guys, is kind of our predictions for the Outlanders patch, which is coming out. But first, and I haven't talked to syndereN about this yet, depending on the day that it comes out, we may have to change the day of our podcast. I'm not 100% sure about this. Just be forewarned that it's possible, because you predicted that it will come out on Sunday, the 24th, and I said 24th. Monday, the 25th, right?
So, I think something like that, yeah.
By the way, did we bet on this? Is this considered a bet?
I don't think we did, but if you want to eat another tomato...
All right, let's forego the bet. I don't want to be wrong again. I don't want to take the risk. But if it does come out on the Monday, the 25th, I'm going to be very busy making a lot of videos. And syndereN and I think you've agreed to this, unless I dreamt it. We're going to be doing a patch notes analysis video / semi-podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
And then we might have to delay the actual podcast for a day later because it doesn't make sense to have all that stuff all at once.
Yeah. I mean, on top of that, like I said, we're literally getting the dog on the 26th. So that is the day of the podcast usually. So I think just to keep things safe and just put it out there now, more than likely next week's episode will be recorded at a different day than the Tuesday. So either maybe we record it on the Monday if the patch drops Sunday, or even if it drops the right time Monday, we could maybe get something in like patch notes plus the podcast, or the podcast gets pushed or maybe even skipped next week because I will have... I don't know how full my hands will be. I don't know how full it will be. I mean, we can... All right. I don't want to skip. I think we'll definitely be able to do it maybe just a couple of days later. But yeah, my hands will probably be a bit full in the start.
All right, so I guess it's dependent. So what we want to do...
I just don't know, right? I don't know how much
That's fine.
this will take.
And what we want to do, again, is to read like an actual patch notes analysis where we go through line by line, syndereN and me, as like an addendum to the podcast. As like a 0.5 episode, if you will. And then a later episode, like a day or two later, where it's just a general synopsis plus whatever, like we can talk about the Half-Life thing as well. So that's the plan. Things can change. We'll see. Okay. Do you have specific predictions for the Outlanders patch? Well, that's the first question. And the next question is things that you think that you want, but you don't think will get in. So we'll start with what you think is getting in.
I think so. We obviously get 2 new heroes. And it's confirmed that they both come out at the same time, right? They will both come out in the same patch.
Yes, correct.
Okay. I'm gonna guess 2 new big items.
Okay. And
I think the map will be reworked to be
more symmetrical.
I think shrines will change. In either in location or in how to say. Either in location or in how the terrain is laid out around them. Because right now, if you think about it, all of the shrines are kind of high ground placed for the
Mhm.
teams. In the past, it was different. But in this patch that we've had for such a long time, the shrines have been a very strong defensive mechanism, maybe too strong. If you think about the games that you play, how many a fight have you lost trying to fight into the enemy shrine in their jungle when,
And I never
when
learned.
you think about it, you should inherently, it should be rewarded and encouraged to play aggressive in their side of the on the side of the map, right? It's about gaining ground and winning, and you do that, of course. But I think maybe the shrine placement and the high ground of it is a bit too good, so maybe
Okay.
that will be changed.
Hmm.
So I would say probably something like that will be changed.
Good answer.
Maybe they will scrap shrines entirely. That would be my bold prediction, is that we've tried this for a while and we don't like it. I don't know if that's going to be the case, though. But I think maybe you could do something different.
I have an
having these shrines.
idea. If you want to get rid of the... all right, I'll get to this for my predictions. Go ahead.
What else? I think Holy Locket will get reworked. That is one that I think will be a rework. I don't think they will just rebalance values. The item will be rethought. It didn't work. People will never buy. I literally have not... Like, Holy Locket, 1% of games, it gets bought by one hero.
Just
So
1%?
it's- Yeah, maybe like that. The item's just bad. And,
I mean, I said what I meant was I thought it would be less than 1%.
yeah, 100 games is maybe even less than 1%. Yeah,
I
not good.
don't think I've ever seen it in a game, honestly.
I have.
Wait, who buys it then? If you said one hero.
I saw it in an IO recently.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhat recently. I don't know. I feel like I can count on like two hands the number of times I've seen it, right? But that would also be 1,000 games then, right?
Mhm.
You need to like 1% it's still very few games. Yeah, what else? We're gonna get some. I mean, it's such a safe and boring bet. So let me think of something better.
Sure.
A third tower in each lane.
Oh my goodness, sounds great.
No, I think for now what I said is fine. I'll let you know if I.
What
come
about
up
a
with something
third
more.
talent in your talent tree?
Oh,
A true tree. Okay,
max
so,
level 30 for heroes and a level 30
baby.
talent.
So
Ooh.
yeah, my specific predictions for this Outlanders patch, obviously the 2 new heroes. I think there's going to be 3 new items. Whether you want to include Holy Locket as one of those items, if it's redesigned completely, maybe. I don't know. I think 3 new in addition to that, perhaps. And I have this is a bold prediction because Valve seems to like my ideas very much, syndereN. I think, well, I shouldn't say this is my idea, but we did put it in the mod.
Right.
I think one of the items will be similar to Nokra's Blade, also known as Harken's Blade in Han, which is an intelligence-based item that you buy for like intelligence carries typically. It changes your attack to be magical. So what is that effect called, like with Drow, where you have the toggle effect, right? You toggle the item, and each time you attack, it costs you mana, okay? And your attacks will lower the magic resistance of the enemy, in addition to changing your attacks from being physical to magical. Which I know you think is a bad... I think the last time we talked, you thought it was kind of weak. But the stats of the item, like in Han, for example, are really good. Like Mystic Staff levels, like it just amplifies that, right? So I would love to see an item like this. So that's my bold prediction. Obviously, like a bunch of the nerfs like you talked about, I think the biggest one is going to be a nerf to Morph Ags because of the Earthshaker stuff.
Yeah, Morph Shaker will not work the way it does.
Do you think they're just going to redo the Ags maybe entirely for Morph, perhaps? Might just scrap the entire idea? Like, I don't know how to balance that.
I mean, you can... I think, so what I think is a problem with Morph's design right now is that the hero is inherently not that good, but the Ags is really good, right? So you have a hero where there's this discrepancy between the hero itself and an item it buys. So I think what you do is, for example, to remove this Morph Shaker stupid thing, you make it so that every time you cast Morph, you dispel yourself with positive buffs too. So let's say you turn into Shaker and you cast Enchant Totem, then you have to also hit as Earthshaker, not as Morphling. Because if you turn back into Morphling, you lose Enchant Totem. That would nerf these interactions where you place buffs on yourself, similar with Omni Knight, where you turn into Omni and give yourself Heavenly Grace to become a boss or whatever. And then the trade-off should be, if you nerf that, then make Morphling a better hero in general. So that now you get the Ags for a specific purpose in the game, rather than to make your hero work, almost.
Right. It's like a
and make
requirement.
Morphling just a good hero again.
It's an interesting idea.
I find this. I think that's a problem. I think it's a problem design wise when a hero is defined by an item it buys. I don't think Dota should be like that. And you could say there's exceptions to this where you're like Earthshaker with Blink, but I think that's the exact reason that they made his Ags, or you could still go Force Staff. There are like other ways of landing your spells. Because historically, there's like a few heroes that could almost only be played with one item. In the past, Sand King with Blink Dagger, Shaker with Blink Dagger. But since there's these new tanking builds, you can have games with Sand King not going Dagger at all. You have games with Shaker skipping Dagger to go Ags. They got like new alternatives and new ways to play. And right now, Morphling just feels like, it. Every game I see Morph, it's because it can buy Ags and do something stupid,
Yep.
So it's not a very healthy thing for the hero, in my opinion.
Fair enough. That's a cool idea, though, not getting... Because you still get the mobility,
Do you think any item
though.
will be
That's
removed?
the crazy thing. Ooh. That's a good question.
We've had
than
both,
Holy
what have we
Locket?
had removed recently? We lost Aquila, we lost Iron
Talon, and
Poor Man's Shield.
PMS, yeah.
So is there something that... we lost Aquila. Do you think we're going to lose Bassi? Like, this item is very, very
It is
old
very good
in Dota. It has a lot of history. I personally don't think we'll lose
They would have a riot. Let's be real. Bassi is classic.
Ring of Basilius?
Yes.
I
don't think so. And that actually gets into my next thing.
Again, do we consider an item removed if it gets totally reworked, like Holy Locket? If they just change it into something entirely different?
If they totally rework it, they'll just rename it. So that's a new item, right?
Yeah, right.
If they don't rename it, it's the same item.
Then I think Holy Locket might actually get removed.
Okay. The last thing I think that they'll have in some respect is a new player experience that they were kind of referring to, like a basic tutorial of some kind. A lot of quality of life additions to the game, which, I mean, there's so many you can go over. Remains to be seen what they think is actually helpful enough for newer players. Okay, so let's get into specific things that you want but will not get.
Okay. I want a Techies rework.
Holy shit.
Like
Holy
actual
shit.
rework.
Okay.
I think I won't get it because then we would have got it years ago. And I know that's a really weak argument, but Techies has been, in my opinion, a design I don't like for 10 years, basically. I inherently dislike mining in this game. I feel like it doesn't fit, and I know a lot of people like it. So that's probably also why it hasn't been reworked, because it's such a polarizing hero. I'm just one of the haters, where I feel like in this game, having this kind of mining hero just isn't enjoyable. Like, I'll just say it flat out. I don't think it's enjoyable. It's not enjoyable to play with, it's not enjoyable to play against, and it changes games too drastically compared to everything else. So the problem is, this is a team game that is a lot about team dynamic and movement and making calls and relying on everybody else. And there's no other hero in Dota that plays more of just its own game than Techies does. It's just, it doesn't play with or against everybody else, if that makes sense. It's just out of place.
It's another reason even though it's not on the same scale, but Arc Warden has some similarities in some respects.
He has similarities, but
drastic.
I still think he's way different. And his mines are visible, right? That's the other thing. You can play around it in a different way. This is not like me saying Techies is broken or is overpowered, because it isn't. It's just I just don't find it enjoyable in the games, and people get frustrated. It's very clear when you play pub games. There's no hero that gets people angrier than Techies. There just isn't. Even getting cheesed by Alchemist last pick or Broodmother.
I remember that as much when Techies was announced at TI, and I was sitting at the podium. I'm going to cast with Lysander. And I hear everyone cheer, and in my mind, I'm like, "You motherfuckers have no idea what you're doing."
Yeah, I thought
you
the
will
exact
regret
same thing.
this
I was
decision.
like, "You don't know what you're cheering for.
You have no idea."
But at the same time, I'm also aware, obviously, that my perspective on this stuff is not the same, right? Because I have a very competitive and a very a more serious mindset about Dota. And for just switching off and just having fun, it can be great fun to play Techies, and you also need to remember the perspective of the guy playing it. But to make it simple, I would make like an equation. Is this hero making the game more or less enjoyable? And I think Techies is one of the few heroes in Dota that's just a net loss of fun. And to me, that
No
needs a
one has
rework.
fun, except for the person playing.
So the way I would rework Techies is I would keep the demolition theme of explosives, but I think it would make it way less passive. And the first step that they made was blast off, right? Where you you have this hero that goes in and explodes itself. And I think you could explore that idea more. And then maybe instead of having mines, you could have the hero more like ballistics or rocket themed. Maybe it could have a, kind of like ranged explosives in a different way, or
Chipper from
you could
Han.
imagine that kind of things instead. So that's personally the number one rework I'm hoping for, but I don't think I'll get. I think Techies will get changed, but I don't think it'll get reworked that drastically that the mining gets taken out. I just don't think it will get taken out.
Agreed.
Outside of that, what would I like? I don't know how you do this. That's the thing. I would like a way in pub games for last pick to not be as powerful as it is.
They pick at the same time.
Yes.
If they pick the same hero, they get duplicates. Two of the same hero in the same game. I was actually
considering, if you imagine the pick order that we have right now with 1, 2, 2, blah, blah, blah. If you went 1, 2, 2, 2, 1, then both teams would have 4 heroes. And then on the final pick for both teams, they pick at the same time. But what do you do if they pick the same hero? That's the only problem I have with it.
If they both pick the same hero, that hero gets banned. Then they have to pick again.
I like that.
That's fucking cool, actually.
I like that. I fucking love that, but I don't think we'll get it. But that sounds awesome because it removes the last pick ridiculous advantage, and there will be moments, obviously, where one player will just get lucky and pick a great hero against the one the other guy thought about. But then there's a little bit of mind games and player knowledge, and the knowledge isn't one-sided. I think that's the most important thing, is that it will vary who gets the advantage, where right now the guy with the last pick is just an inherent huge advantage in pubs.
Right.
I actually think your idea sounds super cool, but I don't think
that's the best idea we've ever come up with, syndereN.
I love that. If both pick the same hero, it gets banned.
Valve will take it.
Man, this is such a good Lena game. Yeah, man, it's such a good Lena game. Fuck you both. No Lena. Play something works in the game. Nice. Yeah.
I mean, you could use it as you have a lot of mind games, because if you know the other team needs a specific hero, you pick it knowing that they're going to pick it, thus it gets banned. Right?
Yeah, but what if they don't? And
exactly.
Then you're like, fuck.
The mind games.
I fucking love it. I love that. That sounds awesome.
All right, are you done with your list? You got more?
If I wanted, he just asked if I wanted for all pick or for captain's mode as well. This is strictly for pub all pick. I think in captain's mode, having last pick is obviously an advantage, but the way captain's mode is balanced right now is actually very good. With the team that doesn't have last pick gets a lot of other advantages in the draft. Like they get counter picks in second phase and they get counter picks in the first phase. So I don't think.
To be fair, if we did see this in a competitive game, that would be fun to watch from a spectator standpoint.
Absolutely, sure. I think it would be fun. Yeah.
All right, you got anything else on your list before I do mine?
No, I think that's good.
All right, so things that I want to see, but I don't think we'll get. I want the next hero to be announced. I would love for them to have like every 3 months they come out with a hero. That's what I want to see.
A running schedule?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll stop you right there.
Here we go.
Why do you want that?
Because I just want more heroes.
You want it to keep the game fresh.
I love new heroes. It's the most fun thing about this. Because, like, think of it this way. If you come out with 2 heroes a year, which they're kind of doing, what if you just hate those 2 new heroes? And you've played all the rest to death? For me... Then
you cannot play every hero to death in Dota. There's too many.
To a point. I mean, there's a certain amount of heroes that I know I will never enjoy playing, correct? Okay? I have a very specific play style. Sure. If you come out with more heroes, it just becomes more fresh, and there's more chance that I can actually play a hero and enjoy it, as much as I do Pango. Best hero ever.
Right. The reason I'm interjecting is when I think putting scheduled hero releases is a bit dangerous, because it can end up in a point of forced creativity, right? It's like, we have to put out heroes, we don't have a really good idea. That's when hero design gets bad, is when you have to push it. And I think it's one of the problems League of Legends had, honestly, in the past, was that they were pumping out heroes and they were just not that interesting, at least from what I could see. People kept saying, man, it's just the same shit over again. Oh, it's attack damage carry that has a dash and a skill shot, you know? Like at some point you run out of ideas. And
Yeah.
I don't know about Han, but I had the impression as well that S2 started pushing out a lot of heroes and they just weren't well thought out.
Well,
Like they
there's
weren't good.
a lot of that was because
you know?
Ice Frog left the team, so the heroes were
Sure.
complete garbage after that.
But they were also pushing them really
I
regularly,
think
right? They
every
felt like
3
they had
months
to make
is
heroes all the time.
I think every 3 months is too often. I think like one to two every 6 months is fine because you have plenty of time. That's more than
Basically
enough
what
time.
we get right
I mean,
now, right? We
like
got
right
2
now,
this year.
I guarantee you they have like a shit ton of heroes that are just in the backlog. They have the abilities. It's not
Probably.
that difficult for them to make good heroes. Honestly, they've had so many years.
I think
Okay.
I like your idea of 2 heroes a year, and then instead of having them both in one patch, they come in intervals. I think it would be really cool to have a Christmas hero and a hero 2 months before TI. Because
I
then
want
that hero
4
can be
heroes a
showcased at
year.
TI.
So you come out with 2 every 6 months.
So 2 every 6 instead of 1 every 3.
Right. So 2 comes out like after TI, and then 2 comes out, 6 months later to the point where maybe they can be balanced enough to be in TI or not. They can just be pub heroes at that point. That's what I would like.
All right.
I think this is a small thing, but I think they could balance ability draft to be much more interesting. Like, for example, drafting the body of the hero. I think that's the biggest imbalance in the mode. Like from top to bottom. If you like when I play, which isn't that often anymore, but if I get Clinks as a body, I know I'm fucked. It doesn't matter what skills I get. I'm fucking fucked. That body is the worst in the goddamn game. It's horrendous. If I get CM, draft your bodies and then your abilities, and I think the game becomes much more interesting. And then fix the bugs, obviously, in that mode. You talked about getting rid of shrines, which I said I had an idea. You could get rid of the secret shop, syndereN. Buy everything from the normal shop. I would love to see that. I've been talking about this for years. And if you want to keep
but
the
you
shop
still want
there,
the side shop.
Yeah, the side shop's fine. And then if the secret shop wants to stay without the current items, you put in consumables, and then you get rid of shrines. That's kind of like a shrine. In a way, right? Pay for shrine kind of thing. I mean,
I would actually like to see that gameplay. I don't know if I could say that it would be good, but I would like to see how it works out.
I'm less into that idea. I'm more on the idea of not having a secret shop anymore. I don't like it.
The problem I have with it, like a region dispenser in the middle of the map, is that if you think about what shrines do right now, is people put pressure on each other in lane, and every 5 minutes they can go back to shrine and reset. If you have a dispenser where you can just buy region, then people will be trading nonstop and running back to buy region, and it becomes this like battle of just harass, go buy heal, harass, go buy heal, and I don't think that's good gameplay. You could have a limited amount of consumables in that store, and then you can do it a bit. I don't know. It doesn't sound. It sounds awkward. So.
I personally think the shrines are fine. I think you're right about the high ground stuff, but I'm fine with them. Having the shrines in the game, and I just would delete the secret shop. I don't like the idea, the concept of the secret shop at all. Yeah, don't think it adds anything to the game.
I agree with you that that's a thing you want but won't get.
Yes, thank you.
I think that's very accurate. Do you think? Okay, actually, since we're talking about shrines, do you think 4 is the right amount?
I mean,
let's say we both. I don't think shrines are inherently bad. I just think it's something that could change because at some point we had like 10 of them per side, right? We had 1 million in base, and then we've had different iterations now, so they've tried different stuff.
I don't think you can do.
Do you
more.
think they're good? And if yes, do you think we have the right amount?
I think it's fine.
And do you think the placement is right too? Do you think that's where they should be?
I agree that maybe they shouldn't be on such like a high ground defensible position.
Regardless of the layout of the map, just the location.
The location. So regardless of
the location is the right
the terrain, you're talking about the actual location. Yeah, I think location.
Just where they're placed. Do you think that's the right place?
I think it caters to offlaners, which should be the point.
Okay.
Or 2 of them at least, for the most part, right? I think those are the 2 that matter the most, are the offlaner ones. I think that's a big deal. Other 2, I could see maybe some changes on location. But all right, 2 more. 1 is not that big of a deal, but I think it would be fun having Aghanim Scepter effects for all heroes, like in Dota 1. I would love to see it.
That'll be
nice little
dope.
Classic thing there. And I have a very groundbreaking idea, which might not be good for new players because it becomes more confusing, but it's interesting nonetheless. You know how there's so many items in the game, syndereN?
Yeah, I know that.
What if you come out with 30 new items this patch? 30. And you have a rotation of items that are available. Does this sound like a certain game? for a week.
You mean like
at a
jail
time.
in Underlords?
That's right. A jail in Dota for items.
I hate it.
Thank you, syndereN. Appreciate it.
I wholeheartedly hate this idea.
To be
Please do not
clear,
do that.
I don't like this idea either. I just thought it was a hilarious one to bring up.
That is something. Well, you don't even want it. You said
No,
you
I
don't
don't-
like the idea,
I don't like it.
but I would say you won't get that.
I
for sure.
agree. What if we get it and then we all love it? Huh? Can you see a
I
world
don't
like that?
I mean, there's been plenty of times where we've been skeptical about stuff and it turns out okay, especially me, right? When we've talked about things in the past, oh, cosmetics are going too far. Oh, this is too blah, 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 blah. I mean, a lot of the time it's fine, right? It's still the game.
It's fine. Like some people are more evolved to start with and other people need to grow into it. Like I get
Yeah,
it.
that's me.
It makes sense.
Very primitive.
All right. So I believe that ends our episode for this week. Have you seen
It
In
does.
Bruges or Joker?
No. Thanks for watching.
I wish this was more interesting end to the episode. But remember, you can catch this episode of We Say Things live every Tuesday at 1 a.m. PST, 10 CET on twitch.tv/SUNSfan TV. That's a lot of TVs. If you missed it live, though, don't fret because it'll be uploaded to Dota Cinema's YouTube channel and is available via audio on all audio apps. Check sunsfan.gg/podcast for the full extensive list. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Remember, next week's episode might be delayed based on when the actual Outlanders patch comes out. Are you excited, syndereN? I'm actually so pumped about this update.
I'm excited. I'm very excited to see. I'm excited for Grandma.
Me too. That should be a great hero. The other hero, well, we'll have to wait and see. All right, until next time, goodbye.
Bye.
We say things that don't mean anything, but thanks for listening. Yeah.